we are in the midst of pretty much the main sports going on. Baseball's about to hit the playoffs. The NFL season is in full swing. We are about to go into the NBA and the NHL. But we have to talk about these streaming services, which is starting to get out of control. I did it for my football teams. I'm a diehard Giants fan, and I'm realizing that I have to get subscribed to things like Netflix, Amazon Prime. I have YouTube TV, and unfortunately, it seems like there's going to be more that I'm going to have to subscribe to. And what really led me to wanting to talk about this subject today is honestly something that I saw on my Twitter account. So if we go over here, this is the full list of streaming services that you need in order to watch all of the games in the NBA. So you need ABC, which you can get from like YouTube TV or Sling, but you also need things like Peacock, ESPN Plus, which is $30 a month, Amazon Prime. And unfortunately, if you are a fan of multiple sports, you need multiple streaming services depending on what teams you watch, whether you're in the market, out of the market, everything like that. So in this video, in this stream, I should say, what we're going to do is we're going to react to a couple of different creators that are talking about all things from these streaming services, why they are causing sports fans like you and me to pretty much lose our fandom over this, and how the rise of illegal streaming services like Stream East are now coming back. But before I show you all of that, there is one more thing on my X account that I do want to show you, and that's this. This is like the history of how streaming services came to become one of the more expensive things that we're spending money on. So back in the 2018-2019 NBA season, you only needed access to TNT, ABC, and ESPN, and then a little Peachtree, which was, I think, an illegal streaming site. And all of that would cost you about $57 a month. So if I run that by my handy little calculator, that's $684 a year. Great. It's bad, but not too crazy. Now, if you go into this coming season, 2025-2026, all of a sudden, you need all of these plus Amazon Prime, plus Peacock, thus supposedly putting your costs up to $116.96. And if you multiply that over a year, that's about $1,400 just to watch the NBA. That's not counting if you're into the NFL, MLB, UFC, boxing, anything like that. And honestly, I've seen more prices along like the $1,000 mark. So let's just get right into some of these videos and see what the heck we have been going through over the last several months, years, and where is it coming to in the future.
The other day, I got this notification. What in the hell is Google Services? Then I remembered. Back in April, my favorite team, the Washington Capitals, played the New York Rangers in the NHL playoffs. Typically, I watch most Caps games through my ESPN Plus account.
Well, technically, it's my brother-in-law Dave's account, but he's cool with it, I think.
But since I live in New York City, the games in New York would be blacked out on ESPN and only available on cable or via...
Which, again, one of the things I hate most about watching sports now and needing all of these subscription services is the blackouts. So if you're quote unquote in market, like for instance with the Rangers, you have to be in New York or in the surrounding areas. You can't watch Rangers games if you have ESPN Plus, if you have like YouTube TV and you're out of network and things like that. You actually have to go to your local cable provider to do so. But if you don't got cable, guess what? You're kind of SOL at this point. That's why a lot of people go to these illegal streaming sites. Matter of fact, I actually had this problem when the Giants first played their game. Was it the Giants game? Or no, I think it was the Giants. It was the preseason game. They had a game on ESPN. I thought I could watch it through my streaming services. Nope, because I'm in New York City, I need to get the local channels. Hence why I had to pay $80 a month now for YouTube TV. And pray my girlfriend didn't hear that part.
YouTube TV.
Nothing, baby.
which is owned by Google. It was the playoffs, so I signed up for a free trial and totally planned to cancel it after the Rangers series until next month the European Football Championship started, available only on Fox. Then the Copa America tournament, also only on Fox. Then the Olympics, only on NBC and a streaming platform Peacock. Then the US Open, only on ESPN. A YouTube TV account would get me all of these, but it was $80 a month. And that hurts, because I already pay $15 a month for Amazon, $10 a month for Apple, $14 for Netflix, and $10 for Hulu.
And this is the thing that I feel like nobody really talks about. It's the simple fact that when you're a sports fan, you are typically a fan of multiple sports and thus multiple teams. And when you're getting all of your sports split up amongst all of these separate streaming services, the cost is going to add up. Look at this. This is pretty much what I pay for right now. $80 YouTube TV. Prime Video, I pay like $16. Apple TV Plus, I don't pay for. I feel like the only way I would need it is if I needed access to like Friday Night Baseball, and I am not a big MLB fan like that. Netflix I do pay for. Hulu, don't really watch sports on there. It's mostly just for sitcoms and stuff. But as you can see, these costs really do add up.
Partly to watch other sports. And it's only a matter of time before Dave changes his ESPN Plus password. These days, it's getting harder and more expensive to watch live sports.
I think these things have kind of spiraled to the point, where there's frustration, there's confusion.
Sports are stuck in the middle of an all-out war in television. Now, the questions are, why is that making them more expensive to watch?
And can fans keep up?
So I'll probably spoil it. This is what's going on with sports. So the actual main leagues, so your NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, they realize now that cable has pretty much dissolved and everything has been built on streaming, that they can sell bits and pieces of their seasons to pretty much the highest bidder amongst these streaming sites. You've seen streaming companies pretty much test it out with like Netflix getting a game or Amazon getting like the Black Friday game. And these teams, these like leagues are pretty smart about this. So they know, hey, I have this primetime game. Pick your team. The Yankees versus the Dodgers in a World Series rematch. You can go the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs for the NFL. They know I can sell this game and bid up Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, Apple, and whoever wants it is going to pay for it. So they start the bidding war between all of these streaming services. The streaming service that wins gets the right to that. Perfect example being Amazon with their Black Friday games. And because they have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for the rights to these games, they have to up their subscription costs to pretty much offset what they paid. Which I'm pretty sure that's what this video is going to talk about, but that's just the way I see it from like a business sense.
All right, I'm going to use this Jenga set to show you how watching live sports got so ridiculously expensive. But first, while I set it up, I need to explain how live sports became so valuable in the first place.
Goes all the way to the Bears.
This American college baseball game was the first sports game to be televised live in the US, but it wasn't a huge deal, because not many households had TVs in 1939. By 1960, though, more than 90% of them did, leading TV companies to scramble for shows that they could sell ads on. Sports were uniquely suited for this.
Advertisers love live sports because people sit down and watch the ad. It's a captive audience, and it's a wealthy audience.
Jacob Feldman covers sports business for Sportico.
It's the fourth quarter. It's a 2-minute warning. Fans are going to sit there and wait for the commercials before they see how the game ends.
64 will be back after these messages.
Other live shows like news and primetime scripted shows drew big audiences too. And by the 1980s, they were becoming the core pillar of the TV industry's business model. All right, so these are shows. Orange is going to be live sports. Green are other live shows like news and scripted dramas that air at the specific time every week. And brown are shows that aren't live. TV companies like NBC and ESPN produce all three. and they sell space on them to advertisers. They also charge cable companies the right to package them with other channels. This is called the cable bundle, and cable companies would sell to customers for one easy price. So live sports are the most valuable shows in this bundle, but they're also some of the most expensive. And that's because TV companies need to buy the rights to these shows from sports leagues, say like the NFL or NBA. Now the
Similar to what I said, right?
magic of the bundle is that this was the only way to watch TV. Even if you just watched nature shows or soap operas, tough. You had to pay for all of it. And that demand allowed cable companies to sell it to everyone for a reasonably low price.
Yeah, I think it was a great business for.
So this is the thing, though, and this is why I believe that the fall of cable and thus the punishment that we have when it comes to streaming companies is mainly our fault. So as a sports fan, I was one of the people that was chanting, why do I have to pay $100 and something for a full cable package of 200 channels when I'm only going to watch the same 5 channels on a day-to-day basis? And unfortunately, they got hip to it. Cable started dying down. Streaming came up. Streaming started as the cheaper alternative, and as it got more popular, it stopped being that.
Everybody. Cable companies were making a lot of money because everybody was subscribing, and even if they raised the rates, people kept subscribing because what are you going to do, not have TV?
Of course not. Until the internet arrived. So the most surprising thing that's happened to me over the last year is that I've managed to become a morning person. And it's not actually due to the amount of work I have to do.
Is this
it's got
an
everything
ad?
to do with tennis. So I started playing a couple of years ago, and I quickly learned a lesson. If you want to play tennis in New York City, you got a party.
Skipping
and
the
I'll take
ad.
you back to the video. In the 2000s and 2010s, streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime began offering lots of shows, but not live ones, because they were selling subscriptions, not ads, meaning they never needed to draw a live audience at a given time. Instead, for a monthly fee, they let viewers watch as many episodes of Friends or Breaking Bad as they wanted. And at first, these cable companies were thrilled about it.
They're like, oh, Netflix is going to pay for our content. You know, stuff we're not airing on our TV channel anymore, but Netflix will pay for it. And slowly over time, over years, and then rapidly, people said, oh, I don't need TV at all.
You know, it's crazy to think how much Netflix has really evolved. Like, if you think about how Netflix started, they were essentially like Blockbuster, but they delivered to your home. Like, you would get the DVDs delivered to your house and then drop it off in the mailbox when you were done with it. And now they evolved to like such a media empire where they have live shows. They still have the pre-recorded stuff. They have live sports now. So this tells you like it evolves pretty quickly. Like, this is probably all within the last, we're in 2025, maybe 10 to 12 years, all this evolution with Netflix.
I just need Netflix.
That's why this cable bundle is a Jenga tower. The more people watch shows on Netflix, the less they began tuning in live to watch them on cable.
Do you have a minute?
Dude, what am I... Rachel's here, so good luck, man.
Then the less time they spent on cable meant fewer people watching these live shows.
If people are going to watch Saturday Night Live on YouTube, they're going to watch the best Jimmy Fallon bit on YouTube. I don't need to sit there for 45 minutes to see one 5-minute interview with a celebrity like I did 25 years ago.
Eventually, by the 2010s, the only shows that people were tuning in live for were sports.
This chart shows that in 2002, the audience for an average NFL game was 52% bigger than for a non-sports primetime show. By 2012, it was 154% bigger.
This meant the only shows that TV companies could make a lot of money on were sports, and the sports leagues knew it. Take the NFL. Every few years, it charged more and more for the rights to televise their games, and TV companies had little choice but to pay them. As TV companies started paying more for sports, they began charging cable companies higher fees to carry them, and cable companies had to start raising their prices on their customers.
And that's where it got to us. So when these cable companies started realizing that they had to charge more money to offset the money that they had to pay the leagues for exclusivity, well, then we started feeling it and said, well, we don't need cable anymore. And then we started slowly inching our way to only streaming sites, aka cutting the cord.
2013, it was near $70. Too much for a lot of folks when they could watch TV elsewhere. This is about when watching TV got a lot more expensive for most people. But many sports fans kept paying for.
I just also want to say, I miss the days where YouTube TV was only $35 a month. I subscribed to it when it first released at that price. And then when they went to $80, I dropped out and went to like Sling or something else.
Cable. And for many, it was still worth it. One subscription got them a mix of every sport. If they didn't want other shows, they didn't need to subscribe to other platforms. And if they wanted more games, they could pay a little extra to get more games in their cable bundle. But as the bundle became more dependent on sports games, streaming companies smelled blood. And Amazon took the first bite.
In sports, NFL fans may be facing big changes when it comes to watching games.
Amazon Prime will have exclusive rights for Thursday Night Football.
It was a small piece of NFL, but a huge deal because it was the first game not to air on cable. Amazon used it to get people to subscribe to Amazon Prime. The NFL wanted to start getting games on streaming platforms because that's where people were increasingly watching. But
It's crazy how people, like, one, it's crazy that this was only in 2021. This was like 4 years ago. And what started as like a little experiment when it came to like, oh, we're going to give Thursday Night Football to Amazon Prime. None of us as sports fans really like cared as much because typically Thursday Night Football was considered the bad games. It was always the bad teams that were doing it. And that just led the NFL to being able to give it up, and none of us as fans really noticed nor cared.
it was also part of a lucrative strategy. For decades, the NFL had divided up its games to get more TV companies to bid on them. But now it was slicing them into even smaller pieces so that streaming companies would bid too, and they would make more money. This season, the NFL sold an exclusive game to NBC's platform Peacock. It sold another exclusively to ESPN Plus. We don't have an ESPN Plus.
And that's how it slowly happened. Now, all of a sudden, if you are an NFL fan and you want to watch all the games, you got to go to Amazon Prime for Thursday Night Football. You have to go to Sling or YouTube TV or a cable company for Sunday Football because it's on CBS and Fox. And then if you're watching Monday Night Football, you need Sling, YouTube TV, or ESPN Plus in order to watch those games. Then you got the holidays when Netflix gets a Christmas game. The Black Friday games are through Amazon Prime. It's just going to get worse and worse as these companies continue to bid up.
Gonna be... And it sold 2 Christmas Day games to Netflix for $75 million each. It's still just a few games, but it's forcing a lot of football fans to pay for more than just cable. Jacob calculated that fans will need to pay $788 to watch every NFL game this season. Or...
It sounds like... Oh, why did this happen? Anyways, the reason it costs so much money is because not only you need these streaming services, but if you're trying to watch every game, then you're also going to need NFL Sunday Ticket, which is like $360 for the entire season, or subscribe to NFL Plus Premium or Premium Plus, where you could get access to NFL Red Zone, which doesn't give you the full games, but basically gives you the best parts of them.
Around $322 for games that used to just be on cable. Now, other leagues are spreading their games across streaming platforms too. Major League Baseball now has games across cable, HBO, Peacock, YouTube, and Apple TV. Starting in 2025, the NBA will have games on cable, Peacock, plus 66 games on Amazon Prime. And Amazon also just bought Monday Night Hockey from the NHL. The MLS, bucking the trend, has all its games on Apple TV. What subscriptions you need depend on where you live and how many games you really want to watch.
And just to add one more, WWE, for any wrestling fans, Monday Night Raw is on Netflix Friday Night SmackDown is basically on cable TV. NXT is on Peacock, and any premium live events, which is like their WrestleMania, their Royal Rumble, all of that, that is on ESPN Plus all of a sudden. So that's 4 different subscriptions you would need if you're also a fan of WWE products.
But in general, the spreading out of these games across streaming platforms is forcing sports fans to subscribe to more platforms than they ever have before.
A recent poll showed that 57% of Americans think there are too many separate platforms required to watch live sports.
At the
But it is our fault. We signed up for this.
same time, every game they move to streaming weakens the cable bundle just a little bit more. And at some point, there won't be enough to make this bundle worth paying for. Many believe it comes down to ESPN. In 2025, it announced launching a standalone streaming platform, and many believe it could kill the cable bundle, because without ESPN, it won't have enough live sports to make it worth buying. Now, it's likely that these streaming platforms will pick up the pieces, or maybe something new will come together. But without a one-stop shop for sports, sports fans will need to decide which sports they want to follow and which platforms carry them. It's something super fans will probably do, but what about someone like me, who likes to have a mix of everything?
I think the general sports fan is going to die. I think that concept of being somebody who wants to throw the game on, it's just going to become too hard, too expensive.
And for many, it's already too much. It's probably why some are increasingly finding ways to follow sports without watching TV. A recent YouGov poll shows that people between age 18 and 24 are watching far less live sports than any other age group. Instead, they're more likely to just watch highlights, follow players on social media, and play sports video games.
I will say I am one of those that just watch the highlights at this point. It's just cost so much money to watch every sport that you're interested in, to the point where now my baseball, which I follow the Yankees on that, I'll just wait until the Yankees or Major League Baseball or House of Highlights actually puts the highlights of the game up on YouTube, and then I'll watch it that way. Do the same thing pretty much for the NBA as well, but football is probably the only one that I will sit down and watch live.
I do think a lot of people, and Netflix train them this way. Look, if it's on the platform or the app or whatever that I use, great, I'll watch. Otherwise, I'll watch the highlights on Instagram. And I think that's kind of what the next generation is learning.
Leagues are responding by promoting video games, producing documentaries, and pushing more content on social media. But these things can't exist without live competitions. And live sports can't exist unless someone's there to watch them.
How big of a problem is that, do you think, to sports leagues?
It's a massive problem. I think sports leagues were perfectly designed for the cable world. As we move into this new world, sports are going to have to either change or accept that they're only popular with this segment of people.
By making games more expensive to watch, leagues are earning billions of dollars now. But they could be taking a huge risk by pushing fans away from watching in the future.
I think if it ever got to a point where fans are no longer watching the sport, I think what the leagues would end up doing is essentially just operating their own app or service and just cutting out the middleman entirely. Like, we went from bundling with cable to individualized with streaming. They got their bag from that. The next logical step is to just bring everything in-house. And I feel like if there is one league that would do that, it's probably the NFL. They have tons of money. They have tons of fans. They're only on for like 17 weeks out the year plus the playoffs. So the seasons wouldn't cost them. The seasons wouldn't cost them that much because it's not that much time in there. So if there's any league watching the next 10 years, the NFL will probably have a standalone app, and they'd be like, hey, pay us $300, $500 something dollars. Actually, I just thought about it. They do have it. Sunday Ticket.
All right, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet to Search Party, now is your chance. We cover sports.
No, but yeah. So apparently, because my brain completely forgot about it, the NFL already does it. They have their own internal service with Sunday Ticket where you can watch every game. You do kind of need cable for it. I think you need either DirecTV or YouTube TV to do it. So just wait for them to have their own standalone app to do it. And then watch the NBA might be next because they generate a lot of revenue. MLB may do it, but they are probably the last remnants of cable TV needing, because their popularity is not as high as the two other leagues. And then slowly everything else will follow suit. But that is the end of that one. So we're going to watch this one from Brody Brazil on NBA streaming costs. You saw the you saw the tweets that I just showed you with how many streaming services you need. So we're about to see how much it's going to really cost the average NBA fan to watch all the games.
Brody Brazil.
So as I'm scrolling social media yesterday, I keep coming across this same 30-second clip of Adam Silver. And without listening to it, I can clearly see there's a lot of negative reaction to not only what he said, but how he said it. So I finally decide to give it a listen, and personally, I couldn't really believe how he laid out this topic. Now, the question was...
I don't know if he's going to play the actual clip, but for those who didn't see this, Adam Silver, who is the commissioner for the National Basketball Association, basically went on a press conference, and one of the quotes that really stood out was when he was answering a question about what could he tell fans of the NBA that can't afford all of the streaming sites that are needed to watch the games. And he did say something in the tune of, like, watch the highlights. Like, if you can't afford it, you can catch the highlights on YouTube, something like that. I don't think he meant it with any malice, but the way that we take things, because we live in such a society where clips are everything, it did not go well. Let's just say that.
What's the league's response to how difficult it's starting to become for NBA fans to subscribe to all of these services so that they can follow not only their teams, but the NBA as a whole? Now, here's the catch. If you just listen to this soundbite, it plays one way. But if you listen to the entire question and response, it plays out totally different. Here's the clip that everybody saw on social media yesterday.
There's a huge amount of our content that people can essentially consume for free. I mean, this is very much a highlights-based sport, so, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service, the New York Times for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall. There's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, by another example, that is advertising-based that consumers can consume.
So is he basically saying if you can't afford one of these streaming packages, just piece it all together on social media? Get this clip here, get that highlight there. You don't even care about the entire games altogether, do you? You only want to see highlights. It's kind of hard to believe in that short window of 20 or 30 seconds or whatever.
What does it say? Struck a nerve. NBA's new TV deal resides mostly on multiple paid streaming platforms. Regional team packages still largely via paid. Calling it a highlights league minimizes the value of watching full games. I will say, and this is not just the NBA, sports is basically a highlights league now. You can say that about pretty much any sport. If there's a game that you weren't interested in watching, I bet you if they post the highlights on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, you will watch them. That is how they can get most people to watch a majority of their content. Because not everybody wants to sit through a 2 to 3 hour game. Unless you're an actual fan of that sport or a fan of that team. Now, don't get it twisted. If I see the Thunder versus, let's say, the Nuggets, I'm going to watch that game. But I'm not going to watch a game like the Pelicans versus, I don't know, insert the worst team you could think of in the NBA. Because I don't even watch basketball like that. But if I see the highlights up on YouTube, best believe I will.
The context he put it in doesn't seem right. And that's because the context isn't right. More on that in just a second. I understand why that clip right there strikes a nerve. Because the NBA's brand new national TV deals, they mostly reside on multiple paid streaming platforms. Out is TNT, in is Amazon Prime. NBC doubles down on some of its offerings, but mostly on the Peacock side. ESPN's got their brand new app. Of course, they're going to put things still on old-fashioned linear television, but they're also pushing their brand new platform. So streaming platforms are the way of the future. There's no question about that. But NBA fans are suddenly like, whoa, a lot of the absolutely free games are going away. They're going to places that are on paywalls and kind of walled gardens, things like that. There's also the regional team situations where a lot of networks locally and regionally still carry all of their team's games, most of their team's games, but it's a paid subscription service. It's something you have to subscribe to either via an app or satellite service or a cable provider.
Unfortunately, I deal with that here in New York with the NBA. Thank you, SNY, for the New York Knicks.
So how do you watch the NBA as much as you want to if you don't have at least one or multiple of these subscriptions? And again, it's the amount of different services and the total subscriptions required if you really want to catch a lot of basketball. For the commissioner to call it a highlights league, I do feel like that minimizes the value of, actually watching full games and enjoying the strategy. And I doubt there's a lot of defensive highlights usually on social media. Sometimes a nice block or a steal here and there, but how about some nice zone defense? You're not going to see.
I'm sorry to tell you, with the way people think nowadays, none of us care about zone defense unless we're really fans of basketball. We want to see the blocks. We want to see the dunks. We want to see the crazy three-pointers, the game-winning shots. That's what they mean by a highlights league.
That on a social media clip. All you're going to see is the fast break, the dunk finish, or the incredible three-pointer, or some kind of trick shot. That's the highlight league aspect of it, and I get it. He sees what a lot of other people see, moments that go viral. I totally understand that, but aren't we here to watch basketball games and appreciate a basketball game 48 minutes start to finish? It really does kind of minimize the value of the game, of the league, of the sport, of the product to just call it a highlights league. Anyway, but again, that's one sentence here in the bigger context of what he said. This is not entirely what he said. I also think by suggesting that there's all this free content out there, which is true, I don't know that the NBA entirely loves that to some degree. Like, they'll take the promotion, they'll take the marketing, but they know that there might be a lot of people out there who only get their NBA highlights and information and entertainment via free sources. They're not paying a dime. And so that's good. Like, they're reachable. You want your sport to be accessible, but it's a weird thing for the NBA to be suggesting that, like, hey, go right around our providers and go to the free stuff on social platforms. That's a very scrappy alternative. Anyway.
But on a business sense, it is very smart. Think about it like this. Like, let's pretend it's not the NBA. Let's pretend that this is just any other league or even somebody creating content that is starting from scratch. You'll want a free way of getting people to see your product because it just enhances your reach even more. Putting out things for free on socials, let's say shorts, TikToks, YouTube videos, things like that, even for those like me who don't watch your product on a day-to-day basis every season, I'm going to be interested in it I'm going to be interested in it when I see the free versions of your product. And when you see the same thing over and over and over, eventually you're going to draw that person in closer to having these like paid subscriptions. Think about it like this. If you've never watched the NBA, never had no interest in it, yet you go on TikTok and you see the dunks, you see the blocks, you see the crazy three-point shots, the crazy game winners, then you're like, something's interesting about this. Oh, wait, there's a game that I can watch. Let's say it's on Netflix and you already have Netflix. Now you're going to go check it out. Now you're going to sit through that game and then you're going to be like, oh, this actually wasn't bad. And then that's how they're going to slowly get you over the long term to subscribe to the other platforms that all their games are, to turn you into a fan. And then they have the numbers to where they can go back to these streaming services and demand more money. That's pretty much the game of these sports leagues and these streaming services. It's just a giant circle.
I just want to acknowledge all these things because this is the main reaction that a lot of people had to what the clip that they saw said. But that brings me to the original question and the full answer. And I didn't even get who asked this question, but it's a long one. It's a detailed one. It's a good one. And here it is. Question. It's become very expensive to watch the NBA as a fan, not just going to games, but also in order to, there's different streaming services you have to subscribe to. Some of the RSNs, regional sports networks, are expensive. Those are the local and regional television deals. I know that there are other points of entry for fans to interact with the NBA. There's social media and a lot of younger fans. That is how they're experiencing the sport. But I wonder how much you think about that and how that will shape the next generation of fans. Really good question there. Adam Silver's response. This is a question posed to the commissioner of the NBA. He says, I think about it a lot. I will say I saw the story your publication ran. Don't know which one that is. You took all the different streaming services and added them up and what those costs would be. And I can't imagine that's a low dollar amount. If you subscribe to all the NBA partner platforms, it's probably pretty expensive per month and per year. I look at it a little bit differently because most people can only consume so many games. By way of one example, in these new media deals, we're going from essentially 15 exposures on broadcast television to 75. So to the extent someone wants to put little rabbit ears on their television, you can still get 75 marquee games, in essence, for free in the marketplace. Meaning over-the-air television, free television. Apparently that number is what the NBA is advertising, 75.
And before anybody feels any type of way about that, do not sleep on getting an antenna and getting your basic cable that way. I had an antenna. I think I paid like $20, $25 for it. Put that thing right there. Put the antenna on the window, and I was having all the games I needed from the NFL and NBA completely free that way.
Marquee games this year, absolutely free. I'd say in addition to that, and this is an ongoing issue for the league, there's a huge amount of our content that people essentially consume for free. Now, we're about to get into the part you've already heard him say, but this is an ongoing issue for the league. He's acknowledging absolutely what the question is, absolutely what the concern of fans are, that they're not getting enough access for free, or they're having to pay too much in too many different places. A huge ongoing issue for the league, a huge amount of our content that people essentially consume for free. He said, quote, this is very much a highlights-based sport, so Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service, the New York Times for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall, there's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, another example, that is advertising-based that consumers can consume. You've already heard this part. I think this is a new world now of streaming media. I think we're paying a lot of attention to that. It was one of the discussions we had with our media partners. Like, this is the part you didn't hear. Not just the cost of the games, and I think most people are conditioned to paying a certain amount for high-value content, but also the discovery of those games, right? For younger fans, for the audience that doesn't have a job yet because they're 14 years old and they still want to watch the NBA. They're interested, but they don't necessarily have the access to it for free. Again, I'm a fan of many different sports. I think we've all had that experience where you're going to Google to find the game you want to watch because the world has changed. Like, it's not easy to find what channel the games are on anymore. It's not just automatically in the place you thought it would be. But ultimately, I'll talk about it in terms of reach and how you reach your consumers. It's interesting because of the disruption in the regional sports network business. I never would have predicted this was coming 10 years ago, but a lot of our local games are moving back to broadcast television. In fact, we have more games on broadcast television locally than we've had any time in recent history. We're continuing to look at it, but the ultimate answer is we think a lot about it. We know where we have mass appeal. On a global basis, we're literally reaching billions of people. We don't want to disenfranchise people by working with partners that are creating price points that make it inaccessible to them.
And I want you to pay attention to this. This is why context is so important, because in 2025, we live off of clips and headlines and all of that, to where you could think Adam Silver is a completely evil person based on the one-liner that was said or the one-liner that was cherry-picked out of it. But look at the sentence one more time. We don't want to disenfranchise people by working with partners that are creating price points that make it inaccessible to them. What he is basically saying is the NBA is doing their research because they don't want to stretch themselves too thin with all of these streaming services that people get turned away from the NBA. No sports league, no matter how much we believe sports leagues want to just grab as much cash as possible, no sports league actually wants to lose all of their fans. Why? Because no fans means no revenue. No revenue means those big contracts that we love to see during the offseason all of a sudden disappear. And if all of those disappear, that means the marquee players disappear, and guess what? The whole league goes under afterwards.
I mean, you heard the clip and you saw how that was posed to the public, and you saw that one little bit of how he says, well, if you want to be a fan, there's free ways, and you get your little bits and pieces here and there, but we'll never let you watch a game. He's literally saying they've increased the amount of free television games, and they're aware of this, and they're concerned about it, and it's very important to them. Doesn't this paint a totally different picture? As I get to my takeaways here, yeah, you know what? For the NBA, the landscape of sports television, it's obviously a brand new frontier, and it's hard for them right now with so many things changing and things going from old media to new media, and they're having to strike a brand new 12, 13, whatever, 14-year deal with their television partners. It's hard to predict exactly where things are going, how they can do this in a way that it's still going to be all their content, all their games accessible, easily accessible to fans. Not only can they discover it, but they can consume it at a reasonable price on a regular basis. It will take some exploring. Honestly, there are going to be some missteps, some mistakes along the way. I think we've seen that with Major League Baseball. They've tried some new time slots. They've worked with some partners where you're like, what even is the Roku channel? How do I get that game on the Roku channel? I want to watch my team, and usually they're on one channel, like 6 nights out of the week. And then on the 7th day, I can't even find them. I don't know how to even get this.
Yeah, if there's one tip I could give to sports leagues, sorry, I was thinking about this as he was saying it, please don't change your time slots. I think we're learning this with the NFL this season, because the NFL tried to make the leagues for Monday Night Football. I should say that again. What the NFL is trying to do is for Monday Night Football, they're trying to squeeze out 2 games for that. Whereas traditionally, the NFL Monday Night Football is only 1 game at 8 p.m., they tried, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, to do an 8 p.m. game and then, a 7 p.m. game and then a 10 p.m. game. The problem with the 10 p.m. game, even though it is 2 teams on the West Coast, so their local fans don't mind that at all. The problem with us, those of us in the East Coast, means that game does not end until 1 a.m. And because it's a Monday night game, a lot of us have to go to work the next day. I fell asleep after the first quarter. So for the MLB, NHL, NFL, all the leagues, do not change your time slots. For football, I love you with all my heart. 1 p.m. games, 4 p.m. games, 8 p.m. games. That is it. If you want to try to squeeze out 2 games on Monday Night Football, make a 6 p.m. and an 8 p.m. game. That way, on the tail end of the first game, we're right in the middle of action on the second game. Baseball, 1 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Like, I can't do any kind of like crazy time slots with that. I don't even watch baseball as it is. Basketball, honestly, I only know the 8 p.m. games. I usually only watch the primetime ones.
Channel. That's not a good thing, but again, this is all part of the trial and error as we embark into really a new landscape. You really, though, no matter what, no matter where this goes, no matter what technologies exist, no matter what platforms exist, the number one golden rule here is you have to make sure that you don't price out your current and future fans of the sport. Not only make it too difficult, but also set that price point too high where they're like, you know what, it's just not worth it anymore. You have to create it at that price point where they're still interested. It seems like a deal. It seems like a fair deal. It not only seems like a fair deal, it seems like something they can't wait to take advantage of. And they respect the fact that there is some cost to it, but they're going to get a lot for it. They're going to get everything for it. No blackouts, all the games, one place. Simple as that. You want to be easy and predictable to find. Maybe that's the second rule here. Number one is the price point. Number two, easy and predictable to find. And you know what? I think the main message out of all this, what people saw on social media yesterday from Adam Silver, kind of putting it out there like, well, you can find us for free. You can get your little bits and pieces and highlights and piece it all together and figure out what happened in a game. Don't believe everything you see from just one clip. In that case, it was lifted. It was the juicy part.
And that is just a general rule for life, not just with the Adam Silver situation, not just with sports, with all real life, especially what's been going on the last couple of weeks with everything going on in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please stop taking clips and headlines and just running with it. If there's something that got you emotionally triggered that sounds like it's wrong, do some research on it, get the full context of it before you start passing judgment on it. Adam Silver could have got ran through the mud with the small clip, but when you get it in context, it doesn't sound nearly as bad as what people took it to be.
A little bit out of context, and then it just flew away. And then everybody kind of ran with that and saying, does he really feel that way about us, the audience? Like, you'll figure it out on social media. We're going to put games in harder to reach places and you can just figure it out on social. No, that's not at all what he said. So the highlights-based sport comment, that was part of the equation, but the bigger picture is, yes, they're concerned. Yes, they're aware of this. And yes, it's definitely something that they are cautious about moving forward. I've got full respect for Adam Silver. I know a lot of times commissioners take the credit or they take the heat for how a league is going. I know he doesn't get everything right. There's certainly no question about that. But I think there's a lot of effort and thought and care and compassion put into the things that he and the NBA do. And I think this is just an example of that. So I wanted to set the record straight. Maybe you saw the clip. And if not, now you heard it, and now you know the real story. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Really appreciate it.
And there you have it. Adam Silver, even though I put him on the thumbnail here because it was mostly trending, he did not mean what we all took it to mean. Now, he basically said, we're looking into it every day with the NBA. We're not trying to make it inaccessible to our fans, but we are in a new generation of fans and viewers. We are in a highlights business. People do watch the highlights on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, but they're looking like all the different ways to see how can they best get the most amount of games to the most amount of eyeballs as possible. That is how a league and a business is ran. Now, we're going to watch one more video on streaming itself before we get into the meat of what I also want to talk about when it comes to sports streaming, and that is the illegal stream sites that are growing and are coming back into popularity with all of these streaming programs charging a boatload of money. But before we get into that, we're going to watch this video on Streaming Was a Mistake by Raze. This thing went crazy. It's over 3 million views.
Your comeback. No, not that kind. Video piracy. Remember when streaming was supposed to be the hero that killed piracy? Yeah, that didn't happen. And the reasons why are obvious. Subscription prices are skyrocketing, shows are getting pulled from libraries, and exclusive content is being scattered across a dozen different services. Instead of making our lives easier, streaming has morphed into cable 2.0. Expensive, fragmented, and frustrating. Want to watch Severance? You'll need Apple TV. Rewatch The Office? Well, it used to be on Netflix, but now you'll need Peacock. Sports? One game is on DAZN, another on Fubo. How are you even supposed to keep track of where everything is?
You don't. At this point, you have to subscribe to all the leagues and all the streaming services on freaking X to now get the full glimpse of where your favorite shows, movies, and sports are actually at.
Days, finding that one specific movie you want to watch feels like a chore. You're going to need Google, maybe even a VPN, and while you're at it, may as well pull out your credit card because it's probably on a streaming service that you don't have. Somehow, we've never had more entertainment available yet we're constantly struggling to find and afford the stuff we actually want to watch. Piracy has once again become the most convenient option, but it doesn't have to be. Look at music. They eventually figured it out. Imagine how stupid it would be if you could only listen to Kendrick Lamar on Spotify while Drake was exclusive to Apple Music.
Well, actually, for this, let's be honest. What the heck was that other music site that was through Jay-Z? Hold on. Jay-Z music app. Tidal. So he said, imagine being only able to watch Kendrick on Spotify and then listen to Drake on Apple Music. That is exactly what Tidal tried to do. They tried to basically say, if you wanted to listen to Kanye West, you had to go to Tidal. If you wanted to listen to Jay-Z or Beyonce, you had to go to Tidal. Did it work? Is Tidal even still a thing?
Actually, given their beef, they might like that. So, never mind. In the early 2000s, music piracy, fueled by sites like Napster and LimeWire, had the music industry in full-blown panic. Piracy wasn't just winning because it was free, it was winning because it offered a superior service. Why would anyone bother going out to a store to buy a $10 CD just to hear that one song they liked?
Let's be honest. At some point, if you were born before the days of Spotify and Apple Music, you were on Napster, you were on LimeWire, you were on FrostWire, just illegally downloading all of your music, risking your computer in order to get that one song on your iPod.
Napster and LimeWire gave you exactly what you wanted. The music industry slowly came to terms with this being the future of music consumption, and in 2003, Apple launched the iTunes Music Store, selling digital downloads for 99 cents a song. For music lovers who weren't already pirating music, iTunes was incredible. It made music more accessible, arguably more affordable, and completely reshaped how we discover new artists. But for the pirates, it didn't offer anything they didn't already have. The game changer didn't arrive until 2008, when Spotify gave music pirates a real reason to quit. Suddenly, the iTunes model was...
Wait, Spotify's been around since 2008? I don't remember exactly when I started using them. I think I started using them like around 2013. I know no, not 2013. I was in high school. I think I started using them like around 2018 or 2017 while I was still in college. So that's crazy.
Was obsolete. We stopped buying music altogether and started paying a monthly fee for all-you-can-stream access. The price was right, and the convenience was too. It became clear that if you wanted to actually stop piracy, you simply had to provide a better alternative.
I would have thought that was obvious.
At the same time as the music industry was seeing this massive transformation, the internet was making video piracy a lot more accessible. Regulators' efforts to combat video piracy weren't working. They mostly relied on vague threats and public service announcements like this one. The only success that came from this...
I remember these ads playing all over my TV on like MTV and all those channels. And we would still be like, yeah, we're still pirating all of these... not video games, all these music, all these albums, even pirating like sporting events.
PSA was an unintentional meme about downloading a car, which, let's be honest, we all would if we could.
You downloaded this vehicle.
Yes.
Well, that's stealing.
How's it stealing? I made an exact copy. I didn't steal anything from anyone.
You took potential profits from Toyota.
I wasn't going to buy a Hilux either way. They've lost no money. This hurts no one.
That's actually quite a good argument for online piracy.
I pirated this vehicle.
When Netflix had begun pivoting from mailing out DVD rentals into becoming an internet streaming company, this was a real solution, combating piracy with convenience, much like Spotify did for music. Why bother dealing with shady torrent sites, pop-up ads for who knows what, and low-quality bootlegs when you could pay a few bucks a month for unlimited, high-quality content? Of course, piracy didn't disappear.
I just want to keep saying it. Netflix, when it came to movies at that time, game changer. Even back when they were just doing the deliveries, the fact that you didn't have to leave your house or anything, you just one click, you got what you wanted, game changer.
Entirely, but illegally downloading content that was readily available on Netflix seemed kind of pointless. This was the streaming golden age. Netflix was on its way to becoming a central place for all your favorite movies and TV shows. That is, until competition arrived. Suddenly, your favorite movies and shows weren't all in one place anymore. Disney Plus, Hulu, Peacock, and a slew of others entered their arena.
Just look at this. In 2007, we only had Hulu, Netflix, and Prime Video. All of a sudden, there's what? That's 5 across 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 35 different streaming services. 35. And some of these, none of us use. Who the heck uses Redbox anymore? Like, those things used to just be in front of a Walgreens. I don't even know what UMC is or Quelly TV. Who the heck watches the Smithsonian Channel? There's so many streaming services out here. And before you know it, there's going to be more. And before you know it, all your favorite stuff is just going to keep being stretched out across all of them.
All vying for your attention and your dollars. Unlike Spotify and Apple Music, which offer virtually the same music libraries, video streaming took a completely different turn. Content on one platform cannot coexist somewhere else. We were apparently all naive to assume that it could. These streaming services have now made it clear that nothing is permanent. Warner Bros. Discovery pulled Westworld and a bunch of other HBO shows from HBO Max to avoid paying residuals. Disney Plus has been caught removing original films and series without warning, and Netflix is notorious for constantly rotating its library, making it impossible to rely on the service for long-term access to anything. Even digital purchases aren't safe anymore. Amazon has been caught deleting or restricting.
Okay, so here's the thing though. I can't blame these streaming services for constantly rotating their content, taking stuff down, putting new stuff on, because at the end of the day, if you're not constantly refreshing your library, it's going to grow stale to viewers and they're going to go elsewhere. That's, again, the downside with having multiple streaming sites. But I will say, this is why we are so thankful for having YouTube, because with YouTube, all the content here pretty much stays here. You can go to YouTube and still find the very first video ever to be uploaded here, because they have so much like data farms and storage that they can hold all of this content and not need to shuffle back and forth between multiple takes.
Restricting access to movies that customers had actually bought. So let me get this straight. You pay for a streaming service, you get emotionally invested in a show, and then one day it vanishes without a trace? And the only surefire way to watch it whenever you want is to download it illegally? Yeah, that'll definitely kill piracy. While the streaming wars began as a battle royale for content supremacy, licensing disputes and complex streaming contracts have soured the entire industry. Like, why could Disney Plus subscribers in the US watch The Bear, while those in Australia couldn't? These kinds of headaches are a big part of why...
Listen, I felt that way about the show Skins. Why can't I watch the UK version of Skins in the US?
Streaming companies have morphed into becoming their own production studios. Netflix originals like Squid Game should, in theory, be available forever and accessible everywhere. This evolution of streaming companies producing their own content means you're no longer subscribing to the platform with the best catalog of acquisitions. You're essentially investing into a single studio that's hopefully producing something good. Netflix is planning to drop a staggering $18 billion on content in 2025 alone, with the lion's share going to originals, like finally delivering the last season of Stranger Things, even if the years of delays make it hard for the actors to still pass as kids, but whatever.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
At some point, Netflix and its rivals will start seeing diminishing returns on their massive spending on original content and on what they can reasonably charge subscribers. If Netflix decided to spend $100 billion on new content, would you be willing to shell out $200 a month for it? Probably not. There's only so much content we can consume, and it's not like every original is a hit. The few must-watch movies and shows remain scattered across too many different platforms. According to Deloitte's Digital Media Trends report, the average US streaming video subscriber pays for 4 services, adding up to a hefty $69 per month. That's
Okay, the average person only pays for 4. I guess I'm not average because I think I pay for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. with Hulu, I get Disney. I also have YouTube TV. I think if I really check, I probably have like 6 or 7 that I pay for.
Insane, and almost certainly unsustainable, considering that over 50% of Gen Z and millennials surveyed had canceled at least one paid streaming service in the last 6 months. Because
I cut off Sling in the last like month or so to switch over to YouTube.
Streaming has become so expensive, we're going to start seeing more people picking a streaming service like they pick a sports team, crossing their fingers that the new releases will be good enough to justify sticking with it.
Why?
Well, you know, support the team.
Sure, you could drop Netflix after.
Hello, streamer. I help streamers grow whether you're verified. Oh, wow. The bots are here. No, I'm good.
After binging Inventing Anna, just so you can afford to subscribe to Apple TV for Ted Lasso. But are you really going to go through that hassle every single month? That's incredibly annoying. The reality is, if you can't afford to subscribe to both, your options are to either pirate Ted Lasso or just never watch it. Neither option is a win for the consumer. Unfortunately, it's not just the fractured nature of exclusive content that's the problem. It's that streaming companies now have absolute control over everything. They get to call all the shots, from what gets greenlit and the budget to how it's released. Warner Brothers famously killed Batgirl even though it was already filmed and they had already sunk $90 million into it. Why? Purely for a tax write-off. I'm sure their fans really love that. And have you noticed how those genuinely hilarious R-rated comedy films that define the 2000s aren't being made anymore? It's not because people don't want them.
No, it is because people don't want them. It's because people are too dang sensitive that a lot of the comedy that we had in the 2000s would not swing in this current generation. They would be canceled in a heartbeat, and movie studios know that, and they are scared of people like this.
It's because streaming companies aren't interested in making them. Whether it's due to the relentless competition or Wall Street's insatiable hunger.
I think that's a load. I think if there was demand for movies like that, and the studios, the producers, the actors didn't have to worry about being canceled the way people like to do on social media nowadays, then we would have more of those movies. And best believe, I want movies like that. I want more movies like The Hangover. I want more movies like Wedding Crashers or any of those like movies that I grew up with.
For growth, Netflix, once the golden child of video streaming, has steadily become less and less consumer friendly. For years, Netflix practically encouraged password sharing. It was part of their brand identity. Love is sharing a password. They tweeted that in 2017. In a complete reversal, they declared war on account sharing in 2023, forcing users to either pay extra for additional profiles or risk getting locked out.
This was like the one thing I hated. The shared the fee to share your passwords. Like, I had to tell my family, like, yo, get off my Netflix, because every time I would go on Netflix on my TV, it would be like, oh, are you using a shared account? Pay us an extra $16.50 to be able to do it. And it was just ridiculous.
Other streaming platforms quickly followed suit. This wasn't about security or fairness. It was a blatant attempt to squeeze more money out of subscribers. To add insult to injury, Bezos, who has enough money to take joyrides to space, began forcing ads on Prime Video users even though they're already paying for the service. And predictably, many other streaming companies, including Netflix, have jumped on the bandwagon, offering ad-supported tiers that cost about the same as what you were paying already.
Which is essentially double dipping, because they get the money from the ads, and then they get the small little bit from you and me.
This kind of blatant corporate greed is exactly what drives people to look for alternatives. And when all streaming services are doing the same thing, the only alternative is piracy.
Well, pirating is stealing. We didn't steal it, okay? We just downloaded it.
No, the website is called moviepirate.com.
And the other one is called freemovies/arg.
I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern here, because I also use one called stolenmovies.free.
In recent years, Netflix has become increasingly concerned about how easily people can avoid paying for their service. In the competition section of Netflix 2024 annual review, piracy gets mentioned several times. Back when Netflix first launched, its on-demand streaming experience had a major advantage over most pirate sites. The most common way to pirate something was with torrents, which required at least some technical know-how, and you had to wait for the content to download. Today, most pirate sites offer on-demand streaming with a user experience that's virtually identical to Netflix, but with more content and no subscription fee. Netflix piracy concerns are valid. They are losing billions of dollars, but it's not like the company is anywhere close to collapsing.
I don't know. Honestly, maybe it's like PTSD from me being a kid and getting all types of viruses on my computer. I'm scared of using any kind of piracy websites. Like, maybe it's the LimeWire days in me, but just the idea of potentially putting my computer at risk, and I have a streaming computer, so it costs me a bit of money. The idea of putting my computer at risk and putting my identity and like my personal information at risk just to watch something, it's just not worth it to me.
In fact, despite doing everything in their power to piss off their own customers, like raising prices, introducing ads, and cracking down on password sharing, 2024 was one of their best years. It seems people have a surprising amount of loyalty to Netflix, even if the value proposition isn't always great. Subscriptions are
because they were the first. Here's the thing. We are always loyal to the first things that we grew up with. Netflix was probably the first streaming platform that a lot of us growing up, not growing up, like late millennials, early Gen Z, like a lot of us grew up on Netflix. So the fact is, Netflix can jack up the price however much they want. Most of us are going to be loyal to them. It's the same thing with YouTube. It's the same thing with Hulu, depending on if you grew up with Hulu.
Incredibly sticky. Once you sign up for one, you're likely to stay subscribed.
Yeah.
If Netflix was actually suffering considerably from piracy, then they would be much more aggressive in trying to shut down these illicit sites, but even then, new ones will inevitably pop up to take their place, so it's not really a long-term solution. If consolidation of streaming services isn't going to happen, then Netflix's only real path forward is to continue making high-quality exclusive content at a price point that makes people happy to pay for it. Judging by their recent growth in membership, it seems to be working for them, at least for now. The same can't be said for some of the other streaming companies. Ideally, we shouldn't be advocating for piracy because content isn't free to produce, so it shouldn't be free to consume either. However, in the current streaming landscape, even with an abundance of high-quality content, having to subscribe to multiple services at once just doesn't make a lot of sense. Piracy isn't going away. In fact, it will only intensify as these companies squeeze harder, driving consumers towards the very alternatives they claim to fight. The truth is simple. People don't pirate because they want to steal. They pirate because they're forced to, by inconvenience, outrageous prices, or content scarcity. And right now, streaming offers us all three. If these companies truly want to stop piracy, then they need to look in the mirror, because they're the ones causing it. So until they choose to fix the broken system that they themselves have created, it's a pirate's life for me.
Not for me. I can't do it. Like, I don't know. Let me know down below if y'all would, or if y'all already pirate your content. But I just can't do it. I can't find myself doing that stuff. It's just, to me. But we are going to talk about how illegal streaming has now taken over the sports leagues. Before we get into that, though, I need a drink of water or something, so I will be back. Okay, I'm back. Hold up. Okay. So Matt Cole, how illegal streaming took over sports. A lot of us don't want to keep paying for the sports leagues to basically rip us off with all these subscription services. Thus, we took measures into our own hands. There we go. We did it. But now let's see what they got going on here.
Is a broken system.
Welcome everyone to the very first Fox Sports Live at the game time. Nabil Kareem along. Welcome to CBS Sports HQ, NBC's coverage of the Premier League.
Live sports are headed to Max.
Remember when it was simple to watch sports? You used to be able to turn on your TV and flick to whatever sports game you wanted to watch. Now,
Yeah, I remember those days. Sit down, put on Fox, put on TNT. Oh, Addiskin now following. Hey, let's go. Really enjoyed your stream. Love your energy. And I play this game too. If you ever down to team up, hit me on Discord. Okay, I don't know. I think this might be a bot because I'm not playing video games here. But thank you so much for the follow.
if you want to watch every game, it requires a color-coded spreadsheet, a PhD in sports streaming, and a lot of cash to do so. Even LeBron James watches the NBA on StreamEast, a live sports streaming piracy.
Okay, I heard about this, about some NBA player who watched something illegally on StreamEast. I didn't know it was LeBron.
Site. LeBron is famous for being cheap for sure, but he can afford NBA League Pass. Maybe he just didn't want to deal with the hassle of things like blackouts and all the different streaming services that are out there now. So how did this happen? How did sports streaming become so fractured and complex? Let's find out. Sports have existed for many reasons, for fitness, fun, military training, but at its core, sports have always been entertainment. And as long as sports competitions have existed, we have wanted to watch them. There's evidence of crowds watching early Olympic Games in Greece, sumo wrestling in ancient Japan, hurling in ancient Ireland, gladiator games in Roman Colosseums.
I'm not going to lie, and this is going to sound horrible, but if I could go back in time, I would love to have witnessed like what goes on in the Colosseum, like those events. Yes, it's horrible. I'm probably a bad person for saying that, but if I could go back in time and just experience it, not competing, but being in the crowd, oh man, I would love to have seen what that was like in real life.
And jousting matches in medieval Europe. But importantly, you had to be in person to watch all of those events. This all changed in the year 1911, when more than 1,000 people gathered in Kansas to watch a live broadcast of a football game. After a play happened at a field 150 miles away, it would be relayed via telegraph and then modeled in person on a mechanized replica field to show the fans in attendance. This was huge, the first time that you could follow a sports game and not be there in person. A year later, and sports hit the airwaves in 1912, when a college professor created an experimental radio broadcast, where hams could tune in to listen to the college's home football games. A decade later, a Pittsburgh radio station began broadcasting sports to a commercial audience, first with a boxing match, then with a college football game, and then with a Major League Baseball game, marking the advent of professional sports on broadcast. Naturally, television was the next frontier. A 1939 Columbia University baseball game was the first broadcast to the United States. Then college football games and professional games followed shortly after. Sports and television went together like peanut butter and jelly. Sports are inherently unpredictable and visual, and so putting them on TV meant that viewers always had something interesting to watch. The innovations of color TV and satellite broadcasting further transformed sports into a communal experience, shaping Americans' evenings.
I feel like I'm back in college with my whole like history of television and radio
And social calendars. And in the 1970s and 80s, it was easier than ever to enjoy live sports. All you had to do was look through your TV guide, see at what time and on what channel the game would be on, and tune into one of the major channels available to everyone, like ABC, CBS, or NBC. Then, in 1979, a new player entered the game that would change sports broadcasting forever. Its impact? Well, let's just say it's the reason that you're probably paying for 5 different subscriptions right now. The first dedicated sports channel, ESPN, launched initially focused on custom programming like SportsCenter, but it soon secured exclusive rights to the early rounds of March Madness, and then added boxing and the NFL Draft, and in 1987, 8 NFL Sunday games, marking the first time that a channel outside the major networks was going to be airing professional sports games. And it was a hit. People loved it. But since ESPN was only available on cable, this was the beginning of the fragmentation. Additionally, around this time, regional sports networks emerged. For example, Yes Network provides New York City with coverage of the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn Nets. These RSNs slowly but surely pulled coverage away from the national.
That ain't the only one in New York. Like I said, we got SNY for the Mets and the Knicks as well.
providers. On one hand, providing more in-depth experiences for local fans. On the other, further increasing the fracturing. Then the streaming revolution came, led by Netflix, spurring further fragmentation. ESPN Plus, Amazon Video, Hulu TV, YouTube TV, and
I'm not gonna lie though, I'm really liking this video because look at how much things fragmented so quickly. Like sports on major accessible channels, like that was your antennas, your like bunny ear kind of TVs. Then you go from that to cable to regional networks to streaming. Who knows how far we could probably stretch out sports at this point, but I'm not looking forward to it.
And Peacock all have jumped into the world of sports streaming. And to top it off, the leagues began offering their own packages like NBA League Pass, MLB TV, NFL Plus, and NFL Sunday Ticket.
Never mind, we separated even more. Oh my gosh, wait, they might be missing one. Well, I mean, if you don't count like WWE Network, depending on how you feel about wrestling, NBA, MLB, you know what's crazy? I'm surprised NHL doesn't have one for hockey. Maybe they're the last ones to be staying with cable TV.
And now we're seemingly light years away from the old, simple past of watching sports. So, let's say you live in Boulder, Colorado, and you love two things, hockey and college football. You want to watch Colorado Avalanche games in the spring, CU Boulder football games in the fall, and some of the major sporting events in between. So how can you do that? So first, for the Avalanche games, you're going to need access to the local RSN, Altitude Sports. And it's kind of hard to find a service that carries it. Unfortunately, many of the major networks have dropped it due to network disputes. So your best bet is signing up for DirecTV Stream or Fubo TV. That's one subscription. Next, CU Boulder games are on ESPN, Fox Sports, and occasionally CBS. For ESPN, let's say you pick YouTube TV as your provider. You're also probably going to need ESPN Plus since they have some exclusive games and you don't want to miss those. The big events like the Super Bowl or the NBA playoffs normally air on the major networks, but sometimes you can only find them on niche channels or streaming exclusives, meaning you might need yet another service like TNT, Paramount Plus, or Amazon Prime Video. In total, you might need at least 4 or 5 subscriptions to cover all your interests. And with each service costing
4 or 5 is light. Like I did this as an experiment for me being a New York Giants fan for football, a New York Yankees fan for baseball, and I wanted to see like the experiment of how much it would be and cost me if I were to be out of the market, which means out of New York. I would have needed to catch every game from just those two teams. I would have needed NFL Sunday Ticket. I would have needed Netflix. I would have needed Amazon Prime. I would have needed Apple TV. I would have needed MLB TV. I think, was it just the 5 networks? Well, 6, because I also would have needed a live TV service like YouTube TV in order to catch like playoff games, Super Bowl, things like that. That's 6 different streaming services. That's easily about almost $1,000 a year, depending on if you want like the ad-free version or not.
Anywhere from $10 to $80 a month, you might be looking at $200 a month and a big headache. There are 2 main reasons for this fractured and frustrating world: blackouts and exclusivity deals. So,
I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Blackouts are probably the worst thing about being a fan, because if you don't live in that direct city, but you're like in the surrounding region, they can still say, well, you can't watch it unless you have local cable. I think there's somebody that, what is it? There's a New York Giants content creator for football. He doesn't live in the city. I think he lives like somewhere in Long Island or something like that. He said he don't get Giants games, but he gets the Philadelphia Eagles games, which is insane to me.
Imagine paying for a service specifically to watch your favorite team, only to find out that you're not allowed to see their home games. That may sound crazy, but welcome to the world of blackouts. Blackouts were originally produced to protect local broadcasters and teams. The thought was that if a game was available on TV in the same market that it was being played in person, then it would deter fans from buying tickets to see the game live. So leagues implemented these blackout rules where games could not be aired in the same place that the game was being played in person. For a fan, navigating these blackouts can be a headache. Even with multiple subscriptions, you might be still unable to watch the game if it's in your area. Moreover, it's simply confusing what is and isn't blacked out. It's different per region, per location, per team. In Iowa, for example, residents are blacked out from watching 6 different MLB teams, despite being hours away from any of their stadiums. So,
Iowa, I feel so bad for you then, if that's still the case.
if you want to watch your local team play without buying an expensive in-person ticket, you might be out of luck. The second main culprit is exclusivity deals. In the NFL, for instance, Thursday night games are currently broadcast exclusively by Amazon Prime Video. Then Sunday games are typically split between CBS and Fox, with CBS taking the AFC games and Fox taking the NFC. Super Bowl rotates on a 3-year schedule between NBC, CBS, and Fox Sports. And while these deals make sense for the business to lock in revenue, for the viewers, they've created an expensive storm of confusion and frustration.
And I will say, at least for the NFL part, this is the reverse side of the blackout dates. Imagine you are a fan of your local team and you are used to watching your games either on CBS or on Fox. The fact of the matter is, if your team ends up playing a Thursday night game or they end up playing a Monday night game, you're not going to get your team's games on your usual networks. You're going to have to subscribe to either Amazon or ESPN just to get those, or you're probably just going to have to watch the highlights like we talked about earlier.
And so it's not a huge surprise that many take to the high seas to watch their favorite sports teams. People are increasingly turning to certain sites that are, simply put, convenient locations where you can watch every live sports broadcast you could want to. And these sites are run by savvy teams of people who are dedicated to keeping them online. And the world of sports piracy is much more widespread than you may even realize. A recent survey found that while 89% of respondents paid for a subscription to watch sports, over half of those were still using pirate services on a monthly basis. 31% of respondents cited frustrations with local broadcasting limitations as the reason for why they turned to piracy. In the 2024 Super Bowl, an estimated 17 million viewers tuned in to illegal streams to watch it, with over 1,300 different streams counted while it was live. And only 16% of respondents reported never using pirate services to watch live sports. Those are some stark numbers that cast a light on just how frustrating the world of live sports streaming is today. But looking forward, it's not all bad. Venue Sports offered a glimmer of hope. Designed as a platform to bring all the top leagues together in one place where you can watch it all live, the service's launch was sidelined in August of this year following an antitrust lawsuit. Alongside this, the way that fans actually consume sports content is ever evolving. Social media platforms have become go-to destinations for quick sources of highlights and recaps. Teams and even the leagues themselves have been consistently building out their social media pages and are consistently posting updates and highlights. It's now possible, for better or for worse, to effectively follow a team without ever watching a live game. Additionally, user-generated content has been gaining prominence and relevance. For instance, Jomez Pro single-handedly redefined disc golf coverage with their high-quality video productions following disc golf tournaments. And so many creators all around the internet consistently provide unique coverage, filling the gaps left by traditional broadcasting. So the world of sports streaming is at a crossroads, and decisions made in the coming years will shape how we as fans experience sports for decades. One thing's for certain, the passion of sports fans and our dedication to follow our teams will continue to drive innovation, whether through official channels or creative workarounds.
And there you have it. So, all in all, here's what we basically learned from this, from pretty much this entire stream. When it comes to sports, it just evolved in a way where we went from traditional cable companies and being able to watch all of our sports teams just on our TVs to the business side of it evolving and sports leagues deciding, hey, nobody's really watching cable anymore. I can make a boatload more money just by selling off parts of my league to all these different streaming services. The streaming services looked at it like, hey, if I get access to these sports leagues, then I could get more viewership onto my platform And once people are in there and they're paying this like $9.99 for my streaming service, they will essentially not leave. Because let's be honest, when you're paying like $5.99, $9.99, $19.99 for a streaming service, you're going to most likely forget that you're paying for it. And if you put it on a credit card, you're definitely going to forget about it. And then next thing you know, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year goes by, and you pretty much just keep paying it, not even thinking about it. And that's what they really want you to do. And when it comes to sports leagues, who knows where this is going to evolve in? Like I said, every sports league is participating in this same system. MLB is doing it, NFL, NHL, NBA, WWE is doing it. You saw MLS is doing it. The Olympics, I was so lucky to find out during the last Olympics that they were only on Peacock and I could watch all the games there. But who knows? Maybe the Olympics and the World Cup may do that at some point as well, where they just sell off parts of their games to all these different streaming sites. And I tell you, with the rarity of it, I would not be shocked if that does happen, because those events are so rare that it's essentially a cash cow. But that's all I got for y'all today. I am going to have clips of these live streams going up multiple times during the week. And I am starting to stream Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So be on the lookout for those. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a like here. And I will see y'all next time.